Welcome to Healthy Buzz, the podcast for women who are craving honest answers in a supportive community. Hosted by Brandy Homerding, a certified nutrition therapy practitioner who believes your body isn't broken, but the narrative around women's health is. Each week, we're diving deep into holistic health topics, challenging the one-size-fits-all approach, and empowering you to trust your own informed intuition. Get ready to feel seen, supported, and seriously informed. This is Healthy Buzz, where collaboration meets unfiltered transparency in women's health. Hi, Healthy Buzz listeners. Today, I will be talking with Rachel Kirby of Cocoon to chat all about hormonal acne. Rachel Kirby is the founder of Cocoon, a hormone health brand that creates supplements for hormonal acne. She spent over 7 years managing health and beauty brands like CoverGirl and Clearasil, but despite being immersed in skincare, she continued to struggle with persistent breakouts. Eventually, she discovered the root cause, high estrogen, and within months, estrogen balancing supplements transformed her skin. With a renewed perspective on skin health and a passion to help others, she launched Cocoon's first acne supplement in 2023. Since then, Cocoon has helped hundreds of women balance their hormones and clear their skin. Currently completing a hormone health certification, Rachel is dedicated to empowering women with reliable products, solutions, and practical education to heal hormonal acne at its source. Rachel, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
So I would love to first start off and hear from you, like your personal journey, because you kind of alluded to it with your little intro here about you were involved in the skincare industry and still were struggling with some breakouts. So can you tell us a little bit more about your journey and how Cocoon came to be?
Yeah, for sure. So I struggled with really persistent hormonal breakouts probably since my late teens, early 20s. And I really tried the whole gamut of solutions that were out there, topical treatments, all kinds of medication, birth control, facials, and nothing was working. And it was a bit ironic because, at that time I was working in health and beauty in marketing, and I still couldn't solve my skin issues. And so eventually, kind of as a last resort, I went to go see a naturopath and discovered that I had this pretty common hormone imbalance, which is high estrogen or estrogen dominance. And it's especially common among adult women. And so I started taking these estrogen balancing supplements. For the first time, I started to see my skin clear up. And I was just so shocked, especially, having the professional background that I had, that this wasn't discussed. This cause and this solution just were never talked about. They were never advertised to me. And so I thought, well, if it works so well for me, there must be so many other women struggling with this, and they need to know about it. And so I worked with biochemists and naturopaths, and for about 2 years formulated Cocoon's first product. It is a product specifically for high estrogen. And it essentially works by balancing estrogen to rebalance hormones and prevent breakouts. It was just the first thing that ever worked for me, and the first thing that made me feel like I was really in control of my body and in control of my skin. It's ultimately led me down this path of understanding hormone health and its connection to skin health. And it's been a crazy journey and something I've just been so passionate about sharing with people.
Oh, wow. That sounds so relatable to so many people. I'm sure I feel like I might be dealing with maybe some hormonal acne, maybe some hormonal imbalances. Can you explain for our listeners what estrogen dominance actually means?
Yes, great question. So estrogen dominance is when your estrogen is higher than your progesterone. And the key here, the key thing with hormone imbalances is that it's really about ratios and relativity. So it's not so much about the actual amount of estrogen necessarily, but it's in comparison to your progesterone, because they're sort of like sister hormones. They sort of work together. And so when there is that discrepancy, there's this whole cascade of hormonal fluctuations that take place. And that's really what triggers the breakouts. And there's a number of things that can cause high estrogen, and we can always get into that, but it's high estrogen compared to lower progesterone.
So with hormonal acne, how would you describe hormonal acne? Because there can be, we can have breakouts that are related to our hormones. We can have breakouts that are related to poor gut health. How would somebody differentiate hormonal acne versus another type of acne driven by something else?
Totally. Great question. And I love this question. Hormonal acne is a bit of a misnomer, I'll say, because essentially all acne is driven by hormones. What causes the oil production in your skin is a hormone called DHT, and that's what leads to the clogged pores and the breakouts. And so when we talk about hormonal acne, what we are really talking about is adult acne, and especially acne in adult women. That's really what it refers to, which is different from teenage acne because that's caused by a very normal and natural surge in hormones. That's a change in hormones that's really supposed to happen. But when you're dealing with all of these hormone imbalances as an adult, that's not really the norm. That's not really what is meant to be happening in our body. And then there's also, more surface level forms of acne, things like bacterial acne and fungal acne. And based on the numbers, they aren't really as common as hormonal acne, to be honest, but they can happen when, you're using certain products that your skin doesn't agree with, or, a lot of sweat and humidity buildup that can cause fungal acne. So those ones would be treated more topically. But when we're talking hormonal acne, what you really want to do if you're looking to get to the source of the issue is start to look internally and start to look at not only hormone imbalance, but things like gut issues, like you said, or whether your liver is a little bit sluggish. All of those things are going to lead to that surge in DHT.
That's very helpful. Thanks for explaining that. What about, you mentioned briefly, like there's lots of things that can lead to estrogen dominance. What would be some of those things?
Yeah, another really great question. So I kind of look at this as two pillars. One is the things that we're consuming. So we can be putting estrogens into our body. And mostly that happens when we are consuming what's called xenoestrogens or environmental estrogens. And these are chemicals that are, once you look into it, all over the place, literally everywhere. They're in pesticides and plastics and our personal care products and even our clothes and couches. And so they're entering our body really without us knowing. And they're very sneaky. They kind of disguise themselves as quote unquote real estrogens and stick to receptors. And they're so powerful. So they stay there and they start to build up. And that's where you're going to get that increase in estrogen. And then the second pillar has to do with estrogen detox. And that's the estrogens coming out of your body in various ways, stool and sweat and things. And so if your detox pathways aren't functioning optimally, then they're not going to come out. And again, they're going to start to build up. And so that's where, supporting your liver and supporting your gut becomes so crucial. So those are kind of the two areas that can really trigger an increase in estrogen.
Yes. And I see this a lot with clients too, because I do a lot of gut health work with clients as well. And like, if you're constipated, if you're not pooping every day, like you're not getting rid of those excess hormones. We have to have good bile flow and good movement of our stools through our system to be eliminating those wastes. Otherwise, they can recirculate in our body and we can end up with an estrogen dominance type situation where there's just more estrogen available.
Yeah. And it's so funny because in reality, we poop out estrogen. And so many people don't know that. And when I say that, they're just like, what? And it's like, yeah, you poop out estrogen. That's how it works. And it's just one of many things that I feel like we're not really educated on. But yes, pooping is key.
Pooping is important. Everybody poops, and we should be pooping every day, preferably 1 to 3 times a day. Yes, we could have a whole conversation about pooping, what's going on there. But I will say too, there is a marker. So I run the GI map test with 99% of my clients as well. And there is a marker on there called beta-glucuronidase, which that enzyme can become elevated when there's an overgrowth of different microbes in the body. And that's definitely going to affect how you're detoxing your estrogen as well, because it affects phase 2 detoxification.
Exactly. Yes. And what they found is women with estrogen dominance tend to have that beta-glucuronidase in their gut. And for that reason, there's a particular ingredient that we've included in our supplement, calcium D-glucarate, that specifically addresses that enzyme because there is that connection.
Yes. What about other hormones? Do you address other hormone imbalances that are potentially going on contributing to hormonal acne?
Great question. And yes, there's a variety. So right now we just have the one product. And as I said, that was a product that was really born out of my own experience. But as I dug deeper and kind of went down this path, I came to discover that there's so many different imbalances and issues that can cause acne. So I'm now in the process of working with the same naturopath and biochemist to develop new formulas to address different root causes. So another really common one is high androgens, something we see often with PCOS. A lot of PCOS women do get that kind of hormonal pattern acne along the jawline and chin. So we're really looking to address that with one of our next formulas. And eventually, come out with this full range that gives women solutions for all different kinds of internal imbalances to not only address acne, but really any symptom that comes with those imbalances.
I love that because there is I'm somebody who has PCOS, and looking back, a lot of my hormonal acne issues that I dealt with were definitely driven by the higher testosterone. And even this last cycle, I did not have the same estrogen and progesterone production because I got COVID at the same time that I ovulated. And so my hormones were really depleted. I was also tracking with Mira, just so happened on that cycle. And I started getting a lot more breakouts because my estrogen, I think, was too low. So testosterone was also being the dominant hormone.
Right. Okay, makes sense.
Hey, Healthy Buzz community. Have you been curious about using a continuous glucose monitor to unlock powerful insights to your metabolic health? Imagine seeing in real time how your body responds to different meals, different workouts, and also the effects of stress. Now, what if you could experience those benefits without being locked into any type of recurring subscription like some of the other continuous glucose monitor programs out there? With my Blood Sugar Savvy course, you'll get exactly that. You'll receive access to 7 engaging learning modules, 2 continuous glucose monitors to start your wellness journey, plus 4 weekly one-on-one video strategy sessions with me where I'll personally guide you to understanding your CGM data. We'll work together to identify your unique blood sugar patterns and create customized strategies for better energy, mood, and overall well-being. Oh, and by the way, this is especially crucial during your peri- and postmenopausal years. Blood Sugar Savvy is about understanding your body on a deeper level, implementing practical strategies, and gaining sustainable knowledge to support your overall health and wellness. Ready to get Blood Sugar Savvy and take control of your metabolic health? Healthy Buzz listeners can save $30 simply by using the code BUZZ at checkout when you enroll at bcw.bcollectivewellness.com/blood sugar savvy. That's bcw.bcollectivewellness.com/blood sugar savvy. Don't forget to use that code BUZZ at checkout for your $30 savings. Your personalized blood sugar journey starts now. When we're thinking about conventional versus natural acne treatments, there's a lot of different things out there. People will throw a lot of different, try this, eat that, use this skincare, use this supplement. How are we wading through that? And how do the conventional versus natural options differ?
Yeah, another great question. I think when it comes to sort of conventional acne treatments, a lot of them do have a time and place, and I will never be one to tell a woman what to do with her body. It's your body, it's your choice. And I think what becomes really important in that sense is just educating yourself. And we're lucky to live in a world now where research is at our fingertips and there's so much out there. But you do have to be careful because there's so much out there and you have to kind of wade through it and understand what's real and what's not. So it does take time. And in a lot of cases, it does take talking to a professional like yourself to get that more personalized guidance. But what I will say with conventional treatments is, for the most part, they are a Band-Aid to the issue. They're not a long-term solve because in almost all cases, they just don't get to the source of the issue, the acne. They can help kind of mask those symptoms. And in that sense, it really seems like they might be working, but there's no medication, maybe birth control, which we can talk about, that is going to rebalance your hormones and get you back to that balanced state. It's going to get rid of the acne in different ways and in ways that can sometimes result in side effects and long-term health consequences. And then there's what we talked about in terms of those endocrine disruptors, those xenoestrogens, because a lot of the personal care products, a lot of the skincare and topical skincare that we use contains those sneaky endocrine disruptors. So we have to be careful about that. And we have to be sure that we're reading ingredient lists and really knowing what we're putting on our skin.
I want to open that can of worms with the birth control, the pill, because a lot of people go on the pill because they will say, I have really bad hormonal acne, and so I'm going on the pill for that. Can we talk about what the pill is actually doing and why it may resolve their acne, but what's really happening underneath?
Yeah, so in short, the pill is stopping you from ovulating. And when you're not ovulating, your ovaries aren't producing androgens. And as we talked about, DHT, which is an androgen, is what actually causes that acne on the skin. So if the root of your acne is high androgens, then it could help. It could, in essence, solve that issue. But if you're dealing with high estrogen and that cascade of hormonal fluctuations that follows, like me, birth control is not going to do you a lot of favors because you are taking a synthetic estrogen daily and just sort of piling on to that estrogen overload that already exists in the body. So for me, birth control was the first thing I was prescribed, and it never worked. And I was kind of passed off between all these different brands and types of birth control, and it wasn't working. And I just couldn't seem to convince my doctor that this wasn't a solution for me. But yeah, it wasn't working for that reason. And so that's generally an explanation of why it may work for some people and not for others. It kind of comes down to what's driving those breakouts.
Yeah. With hormonal birth control, one thing that Rachel touched on is it's stopping that ovulation. So it's also making it so you're not having these fluctuations in your hormones. So, you're kind of more flatlined. Yeah. I'm always they're putting you basically in menopause because we're not ovulating when you use hormonal birth control. And a lot of people are like, oh, wait, hold on. I didn't realize that was happening. You don't have these hormonal fluctuations, so you are less likely to have hormonal breakouts. Because the bleed that you have, if you're taking those placebo pills during the week of placebo pills in your pill pack, are placebo. They're nothing. And so you might still get a little breakout at that time. You might think that you're having a period, but you're not really having a period, but we've just taken away those hormones. And so now you're having a withdrawal bleed in which the body is bleeding because there's not the constant flow of hormones coming in.
Yeah. And I think because so many of us are put on birth control at such a young age and sort of flatlined at such a young age, those hormonal issues that always exist from puberty aren't identified, right? So I don't know what your story is with PCOS, but if you were on birth control for a really long time, perhaps you weren't even diagnosed till much later in life because none of that was happening or none of that was, visible to you. And that can be a really big problem too, because then down the line, you're maybe facing fertility issues or things that you didn't really know about. That can definitely be a downside as well.
Yeah, exactly. And that was my case. I was on hormonal birth control for 17 years between the pill and the IUD. And so I was masking all these symptoms. So even switching to the IUD, the progestin, which is different than progesterone that our body produces, the progestin in the IUD is actually pretty closely related to testosterone. So I was having a ton of breakouts, especially around my chin, the hormonal jawline, chin breakouts when I had the IUD as well, because I was already, higher androgens anyway with the PCOS that was being masked, but then having this progestin, the synthetic form that does closely resemble testosterone, it was driving that issue even more.
It's so complex, which again is just why I'm such a proponent of being sure that you are educated on what you're putting in your body, because yeah, it can seem harmless if you're like, oh, well, I have high androgens and taking this is going to counteract it. And then you end up with a bunch of breakouts because you didn't know the progestin was so similar to the androgens. It's so complex, and just understanding that is so key. The other thing too, which I guess sort of relates to what I was talking about, is if you do want to come off the birth control later in life, then it's kind of what's your solution then? Because I have so many friends my age, I'm 32, that are now coming off. They want to have kids and, they're either dealing with not having a period or, now they have all these breakouts and they don't know what to do because they want to go back on the pill to get rid of it. So as I said, a lot of issues can come up later when, you go off of it.
Yeah, because we're masking a lot of those things. And that's exactly what I was going to talk about too, is like when we come off birth control, your body is going to maybe have a little bit of a freak out, and you're going to have a rebound because the pill can also suppress that testosterone. So you can have this testosterone rebound where all of a sudden there's a surge and it's like a second puberty, right? Like we're having all these hormonal breakouts happening because the body is trying to rebalance. But the thing that the hormonal birth control is doing, one, is, again, like we said, kind of depleting and not having these fluctuations in hormones, but it also depletes our body of a lot of essential nutrients like our B vitamins, magnesium, and there can be a lot of gut issues correlated with hormonal birth control. And it's not that we're saying that you shouldn't use hormonal birth control. We want people to have the information to make informed decisions about their contraceptive care.
Exactly. And to know that there are other options if they wanted to choose a different route. Like this isn't the only option if you're not comfortable with that.
Yeah, exactly. And supporting the liver is like a big thing that I'm always, when somebody's like, I want to come off my birth control, but I'm really scared I'm going to have the terrible periods and the breakouts. I'm like, we need to support your liver and make sure you're detoxing appropriately.
Yes.
What about, you're an advocate for hormone safe skincare. With somebody who's maybe beginning their transition for personal care products, what are some of the most important endocrine disrupting chemicals that people should be looking out for so that when they're making their swaps, they're not feeling so overwhelmed?
Great question. I would say the top three that you're going to find in most kind of conventional skincare, or the most often, would be parabens, phthalates, and synthetic fragrance. That's a common one as well. And then there is a longer list of some less common ones, but even if you can get to a point where you're eliminating those three, that's a huge step in the right direction. And there are more and more brands coming out with clean formulas. There is an app that I use that I really, really love called Yuka. I don't know if you're familiar with this one, Brandy, but it's an app that allows you to scan barcodes, and then it shows you a list of all the ingredients and rates them on a level of harmfulness to your hormones based on different studies. So yeah, it's really easy to use. You can just scan the barcode, and it kind of helps you sort of initiate research too. Like if you see an ingredient, you're like, oh, I don't know what that is. That's so weird. What is that? You'll kind of start to go down this path of like, is it also in this other product? Oh, it is. What is it actually? And then you start to educate yourself that way too. But I've just found it a really easy app to kind of clean through my cupboard and get to a point where, I'm using products that my hormones actually like.
Yeah. I haven't personally used the Yuka app yet, but I have looked up different products on the Environmental Working Group. They have a whole database as well in which you can type in whatever skincare product you want to use or a brand, and you can look at how they're rating those products based on the endocrine disruptors that may be present in the product. So you can learn a lot about what products are going to be beneficial for your skin and which ones may cause a little issue with your skin. Why is that so important? Talk about the skin. Why is the skin so important when we think about what we're putting on it?
Yeah, so the product that I've developed, it's not only for acne, it is for all symptoms of estrogen dominance. But the reason I focus so much on acne is because it's a very emotional symptom, especially for me. Like I've been through it and I know the mental toll that it takes. And so the importance of balancing our hormones has to do with the importance of maintaining that complexion and feeling good about ourselves. And I don't know if that's what you mean by this question, but that's why I feel it's so important to make sure I'm treating my hormones well so that it shows up on my skin in the way that I want it to. I think with, the chemicals that we see in these skincare products, I think a lot of the time we kind of overlook them because we don't see an immediate impact. You cleanse your skin with some conventional cleanser and it may have really shitty ingredients in it, but because you're not getting an immediate breakout or an immediate reaction, you think, oh, it's actually fine. But it takes a very long time for these chemicals to build up in the body. And years down the line, you may be dealing with the consequences. So while in the moment, it doesn't feel so important, in the long run, it really is. And there's more and more studies coming out on that too, and the effect of these parabens and phthalates and synthetic fragrances.
Yeah, exactly. We have to think about the compound effect that this is having on us because the things that we put on our skin essentially gets into our bloodstream and, it's porous. Our skin is porous. And that's why we have things that work topically, medications that work topically, like estrogen patches and topical progesterone. Those work topically because it gets into our skin. So we have to think about, are we putting clean, safe ingredients on our skin, or are we putting something on our skin that could really disrupt our hormones and make them angry at the end of the day?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Can you walk us through the process of what it looked like when you developed your product Cocoon and maybe some key ingredients in your product?
Yes, of course. So I was really starting from ground zero. I didn't specifically have a background in supplements. And in Canada, where I am, they are quite regulated. So you do have to get Health Canada approval in order to sell, which is a little bit different from the US, which requires FDA compliance. So it's just a shorter process. But it was a huge learning curve, that's for sure. And I was lucky enough to work with really smart people, some incredible experts, both on the regulatory side and the formulation side. But yeah, ultimately, I mean, when it comes to the formula, that was really inspired by the ingredients that I was taking that I saw were so super effective. And then once I kind of had an idea of what ingredients made sense, that's when I worked with the biochemist and the naturopath to make sure that the dosing was right and those ingredients worked well together, and that I was covering kind of every area that needed to be covered in order to make sure that this was really going to be the most effective estrogen balancing product that I could bring to the market. But it's just 3 ingredients really. And that's something that is important to me. Like, I do want to provide products that have very simple ingredient lists. I think when it gets to be kind of like, 7, 8, 9, 10, it's not only smaller dosing, but a little bit overwhelming for the customer. And I want to make sure that they fully understand what's going in their body. So it's 3 ingredients. And the first is called DIM. And this is really the estrogen balancing ingredient in the supplement world. It essentially helps to convert your estrogen into a form that is more easily recycled or eliminated by the body. So it does a good chunk of the work. And then the other 2 really support the detox pathways. So we've included glutathione, that's an antioxidant, and that helps the liver to properly process all of those excess estrogens. And then the third we touched on a little bit, it's calcium D-glucarate, and that really makes sure that those estrogens are moving through the gut and out your poop, essentially. So it does really cover that full detoxification process. And one thing I'll add on that is I was really set on making sure it covered that full detoxification process because there are so many DIM supplements out there, like pure DIM supplements. And when you take pure DIM without supporting those detox pathways, you can run into issues where your estrogen just starts recirculating in the body because it's not coming out your poop. It's not coming out the body. And so it was really important to me to include those extra 2 ingredients.
Like, let's say somebody is like, how do I know if I'm a candidate for this supplement?
Yeah, good one. Good question. So, I mean, the first indicator would be hormonal acne. And where we tend to see hormonal acne is on the lower half of the face, usually around the mouth, chin, and jaw. And it typically worsens in the week or so leading up to your period in that kind of PMS window. But if you're not sure, if you're like, oh, but I have some acne on my forehead, or, it doesn't always worsen near my period, a really great way to identify if your acne is driven by high estrogen is to think about your other symptoms. PMS is a very common one that comes along with estrogen dominance or high estrogen. So that's any, emotional or physical change that happens in the week or so leading up to your period. And for a lot of women, that looks like irritability, depression, anxiety, really any kind of mood change. And then physically, that could be sore breasts, it could be headaches, migraines. So that's really one of the main indicators. And then heavy or painful periods is another pretty common one. So if you're dealing with lots of cramping, lots of bloating, that could be high estrogen. And finally, weight gain, especially around the kind of like stomach, waist, hips, and thighs area. So if you're eating well and exercising and just either can't seem to lose this weight or you're gaining weight in an unexplained way, that is also a sign. So if you're unsure about kind of the pattern of the acne on the face, think about some of those other symptoms.
Yeah. And I would say too, maybe even a little bit around ovulation, because there is estrogen is climbing, right before ovulation occurs. So you might have some breakouts around ovulation.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And even some people get a little bit of ovulation pain sometimes. But yeah, you're exactly right. And we do have a quiz actually on our website that the naturopath I worked with helped to develop. So it helps to kind of guide you and go through those different symptoms if you can't remember everything that I just shared. And it'll help kind of give you a sense if you are a good candidate for the product.
Is there anybody that is not a good candidate for the product?
Yes. So it's not recommended for anyone under 18. And that's because, as I said, teens are going through puberty and they're going through this very natural, very normal surge in hormones. And we don't want to mess with that. And then it's also not recommended for anyone who is pregnant or breastfeeding. Again, those women are going through a different change in hormones. We don't want to mess with any of that. So those are the only two categories, really.
Okay. What about somebody in menopause?
Somebody in menopause would also not want to take this product. Everyone's body is different, but at that stage, you aren't going to be dealing with high estrogen most likely. So this isn't really a product that you're going to benefit from. Possibly in perimenopause, when you're still dealing with that sort of roller coaster and your progesterone has already started to decline. A lot of the time in perimenopause, you'll be in that estrogen dominant state, but not so much in menopause, no.
Right. Yes. I would say it really is going to be dependent on each person and knowing how your body is maybe processing. So that's when you could also do like actual hormone testing to see, like a really great test that I really like to use that's a little bit more advanced after we've gotten the basics down would be like the Dutch test, because then we can see how you are detoxing your estrogen and what type of support your body needs.
Absolutely. Yeah. Would definitely recommend that. Yeah.
Here at Healthy Buzz, we are all about mindset over metrics. So when women are looking for the changes that they can expect from supporting their hormonal acne, there's going to be visible changes, but also there's this mental component also. So what should people be looking for when they're supporting their hormonal acne and the changes, and how could that affect their mental health as well?
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, I think speaking from my personal experience in clearing my skin, it made a world of difference when it came to my self-esteem. And when you go through that, yeah, it's almost like a thing that I'll never forget. And I'm just so grateful now to feel like I really have healthy skin and I can look in the mirror and be so happy with the way I look, because for so long I couldn't. And so that's obviously a huge plus side and a thing that you can expect in getting to the root of your acne and solving your acne. But I think through my journey, one thing that's changed a lot for me when it comes to mindset is kind of this hustle culture shift, because I came to learn that stress is crazy, first of all, just in the number of ways it can change our bodies, but how much it was impacting me and my acne. And so in not only taking supplements and changing my diet and lifestyle, managing my stress was a huge, huge piece, and something even to this day I still work on because it is hard. But in trying to manage that, one of the big changes that I think I've made mentally is that rest is productive. And I don't need to be go 24/7 to feel like I am worthy. And that has been a very positive mental health shift for me.
Yeah, and it does. The acne is like really devastating. Whether you're male or female, like it can be really devastating when you're dealing with a lot of acne issues. And I know for myself, when I was towards the end of my IUD use, and I was like, why am I using this? I'm breaking out everywhere anyway. Like I worked in healthcare and I worked as an interventional radiology tech. And so we did minor surgical procedures where I was wearing a mask all day for our procedures. And I was so thankful to have that mask because I was having such deep cystic acne breakouts on my chin. And I could not wait to get home to just like wash my face and just be like done for the day. And nobody had to see me without makeup or a mask on.
Yeah, it's really heartbreaking when I think about it. And I mean, it's why I'm doing all of this, because I don't want anyone to have that feeling of like wanting to run home and cancel plans and not see friends and not live their life. It's hard. And as I said, why I focus more on acne than some of these other symptoms, because it's just such an emotional symptom that takes a toll on mental health. Yeah, it's heartbreaking to see. But for anyone listening that is dealing with that, know that, there is a light at the end of the tunnel and you're not alone and there are other options, and to just keep going. It's hard, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh, I love that. I think that is the perfect way to kind of wrap things up for today. I feel like you gave us such good information about hormonal acne, how you can support your body if you're dealing with hormonal acne, ways that you can understand if like you do have an estrogen dominant type symptoms. And Rachel has put together a quiz that you can check out as well that will help you understand where you're at. She mentioned this earlier. She created this quiz with a naturopath. And so we'll link that in the show notes for everybody so they can check that out. Rachel, how can people connect with you? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so our website is cocoonskincare.ca. As Brandy mentioned, there's a quiz on there and loads of information about the supplement. You can find us on Instagram at cocoonskinco. And if you want to connect with me, I'm on LinkedIn, Rachel Kirby. And yeah, I would say those are kind of the main connecting points. But thank you so much, Brandy. This has just been amazing. So happy to chat.
Yes. And I definitely will be checking out that quiz as well because it's always, I love a quiz. I love a good quiz. Somebody tell me what is going on with me. So let's all go check that out and give Rachel a follow. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Healthy Buzz. I hope this conversation has left you feeling seen, supported, and ready to take the next step in your health journey. Love what you heard? Make sure you subscribe to Healthy Buzz so you never miss an honest conversation. And if you found this valuable, please take a moment to leave a review. I truly appreciate it. For exclusive weekly tips and holistic strategies, be sure to subscribe to my weekly newsletter. The link is in the show notes. Remember, this isn't just nutrition, it's permission to trust your body. I'll catch you on the next episode of Healthy Buzz.